In this video, you will learn about some properties of addition. So the first property is called the closure property. So the closure property simply says that if you add two numbers together, if they're both integers, then your answer will still be an integer. So the math explanation would be if you have integers a and b, then a plus b would still be an integer. So with real numbers, if 4 is an integer and 5 is an integer, then 4 plus 5, which would equal 9, is also an integer. And that is your closure property. Second property is the commutative property. The word commute in English means to travel or to move. So your explanation of this is simply that it doesn't matter if you move or change the order of the numbers you are adding. So with math notation, that could be expressed as a plus b equals b plus a. Notice I'm moving the a and the b on both sides of the equation. So instead of a plus b is b plus a. So with real numbers, that would look like this. 4 plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 4. It doesn't matter the order in which I add the numbers together, we still get the same solution. A third property is called the associative property. So the associative property says that when you add 3 or more numbers together, it does not matter which numbers you add first. Alright, so for a math explanation with math notation, we would have this expression where we have the 3 numbers being added together, a plus b plus c, on both sides. The difference is the way that I'm grouping the numbers together. So I can add the first 2 together first, and then add c after, or I can add the last 2 numbers first, and then add the number a after. So the associative property, if you know the word associate in English, the word associate means to be a part of a group, typically. So if you were to say, I associate with these people, that means you're a part of that group. So the way to remember this is you can change the grouping or the way that you associate the numbers together. You can group the numbers together differently. So with actual numbers, if we were adding 4 plus 5 plus 6, it doesn't matter if I add 4 plus 5 first, that gives me 9, and then add 6, or if I add 5 plus 6 first to get 11, and then add 4 after. Either way, I get 15 as my solution. Next we have what is called the identity property. The identity property says that the number 0 can be added to any number without changing the identity of the original number. So therefore 0 is called the additive identity. Okay, so if you understand what the word identity means in English, the number 0 is not changing the identity. So that's your identity property. So in math notation, if we had a plus 0 or 0 plus a, that would just equal a. It doesn't change the original number. The original number was a. If you add 0 to it, it's still going to be a. So with real numbers, if we were to take 9 plus 0, that would still equal 9. Right? The adding of the 0 does not change the number 9. Next we have the inverse property of addition. This property says that if you add a number with its additive inverse, your answer will be the additive identity, which is 0. So in math notation, we would say a plus negative a, or negative a plus positive a, would equal 0. You take a value, add it with the inverse, or the opposite, and it's going to equal 0. So with real numbers, if we had 4, add that with the inverse, which is negative 4, that would equal 0. 4 plus negative 4 is 0. Now if you wanted a summary of all of the properties Here it is in a table format. So you can pause it here if you'd like to take a closer look, but this is everything that we've discussed in the previous slides. We'll finish with some practice with these different properties. So you are to name the property illustrated in the following examples. So here's example 1. So take a look and see what is different with the left side and the right side. Well, what is different is the fact that the 8 and the 6 are moving. So yes, there's parentheses here, but what's happening is the numbers inside the parentheses are moving. So instead of 8 plus 6, now we have 6 plus 8. So this would be your commutative property, because we are moving the different numbers around. It's not associative because the associative property says that we can regroup different numbers together. So the grouping is the same. It's still 6 and 8 grouped together. The difference is what's inside of it, and what's inside of it is actually what is moving. Next example, we have this expression. So notice that on the left side, we have grouped together the 8 and the 6. On this right side, we've grouped together instead the 6 and the 5. So the grouping, or the association of the numbers, is different, so this would be your associative property. Next we have 0 plus 8 equals 8. This property would be your identity property. It's identity because you're adding 0, which does not change the identity of the number 8. Next we have negative 14 plus 14. This one we are adding the negative 14 with the inverse, or the opposite, which is a positive 14, and we're getting 0 back out. So when you add a number with its inverse, that is called the inverse property. And that concludes our lesson for today.